I think that what you've said is it's well said. But one of the things that I think that organizations, and I'm talking about all kinds of organizations. I'm talking everything from NGOs, non-governmental agencies that are nonprofits, to governmental agencies, to our basic institutions, including the family, by the way, schools and churches. And what happens is that the one thing that is consistently missing in the development of understanding and gaining of new knowledge and awareness of your environmental and circumstantial surroundings is the fact I really don't know who I am. I don't know what I bring to the table. Does it have value? And so I think that one of the things that we've become very, very much aware of, that you have to be intentional in creating scenarios within the relationship of developing an organization or an individual, if you're doing a coaching, mentoring process, is that you have to create opportunities for that self-awareness.
And I don't think that our society really lends itself to that type of awareness, or that type of the reflection, the activity of reflection that's necessary to be aware of those types of things. And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's such a premium placed on quantity, that often the quality of that, of whatever it is we're producing, may be sacrificed in part because, we haven't slowed down enough to really ask some important questions.
Yeah, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to
Sure.
deviate with an example here, and it goes back to my early days of teaching in the classroom, basically old-fashioned junior high school and high school. And that is that the curriculum was structured in such a way that we knew that when the student finished the course, whether it was in June or May, and we started in August or September, we knew that there were certain basics that we wanted the student to learn. And I think that we've become, and I'm really sticking my neck out here because this is my personal opinion, and that is that we have created such a rigid construct for learning, formalized learning today, that the time or the possibility for introspection and for reflection is virtually non-existent. So therefore, I had the freedom when I was teaching American history, when I was teaching government, if I was teaching anthropology, if there was something significant that occurred outside of the classroom that impacted the study of what we were working on, guess what I was able to do? I put on the brakes. I then deviated from my normal learning circumstances of teaching, and we dealt with that set of circumstances that I think built upon the students' knowledge that they needed for whatever the subject or topic happened to be. And in working as we do in schools and today as an outside consultant, I'm finding that the rigidity of the regular classroom teacher, and by the way, in particular, elementary teachers, there's no room for anything about reflection. There's virtually no room for self-awareness. And I think that's one of the huge missing pieces in schools today. But I also think, Tony, it's missing in the business world. I think it's missing in the world of governance at every level. And so if I had a personal crusade, is figuring out how do we blend, integrate those processes so that we can take advantage of that introspection and self-awareness.
That's a great point, and I think just immediately that one of the things that comes to mind, and this isn't necessarily something that would be viable long term, but part of this, and we're going to get into some really specific things here in a few moments. Maybe we need to take a retreat. Maybe we really can't do much in our present environment to really be able to slow down, take a step back, ask some really hard questions, and begin connecting some future behaviors or some plans to that. Maybe we need to just get away and do that. And I think that what we're going to talk about really could be done in that kind of way. You know, most knowledge that we have of ourselves, I think, is externally generated. When you think about all of the influences of the loud voices that are competing for our attention, you know, from parents to media, to our siblings, our teachers, our circumstances, popular culture. I mean, there are some really loud voices, and in no way do I think that, you know, external voices, you know, that they don't have a place, because they do. But they're really loud, and they can be very forceful. And I think that most of the knowledge that we have about ourselves often comes from those external sources. And I think this can become problematic over time as those voices compete for our attention. And a lot of times those messages are at odds with one another. And, you know, as I think about, you know, how we move through life, and we make those decisions of career, and you know, what we plan on doing. You know, a lot of times I think it's very random. You know, the other day I was getting gas at a gas station, and on the gas station pump it said, "Do you want a car wash? Yes or no?" And you can choose, and you can pay for it. Well, I paid for one, and I got a little ticket printed, and it had a code. Okay, so I had to drive my car over to the car wash, and I was sitting there in front of a keypad, and there was a code, and if I put the code in properly, I would be granted access to go in, and the car wash would begin, and my car would be clean. But I think that a lot of times we go through life, and we're at that keypad, but we don't have a code of any sort.
Ooh, that's deep, Tony. Whoa, that's a good one.
I really think that's how it can be. And so we sit there putting in random numbers, hoping that somehow, you know, that light will go from red to green, and we're going to go through, and we'll get our car wash, and we're going to, you know, live happily ever after.
Right.
I don't think that happens very often.
Well, you know, I don't think
the happily ever after.
Well, I think that you're correct. I think, see, you're alluding to some of the things that I have concerns about, and that is that reflection is a process, and reflection takes time, and there are some stages in reflecting, and there are some things that one must do to put yourself into a reflective mode. And for me, it's environmental. I want some quiet, maybe a little bit of soft music in the background, and so that I can, to use an old-fashioned term that my grandmother would have used, you know, I want to ponder a little bit about this. But we've created a society that is so quick, one, to judge, let alone do and make possible, and that reflection timeline, even that we had 20 or 25 years ago, has been shortened by this instant keypad society that I think we're going to use that as a new phrase. You know, this keypad society of punching in the right code and figuring out, if we punch it right, are we going to come out of it a new person, i.e. a clean car? So the analogy is a very good one.